أهلا بكم أبنائنا وبناتنا طلاب وطالبات الصف الثاني الثانوي في حلقة جديدة لمادة البيولوجي. كنا الحقيقة عملنا explanation كده لشابتر 1 وشابتر 2 وشابتر 3 في الحلقات السابقة. دلوقتي الحقيقة هنبدأ مع شابتر 4، وشابتر 4 اسمه excretion in living organisms. كنا قلنا إن لازم أي living organism يقدر يعمل feeding or nutrition. nutrition ده لازم الفود ده يحصل له transportation along the body or the whole body organs inside the body. حصل transportation to allow the food to reach all the body cells. Inside the cells, burning or oxidation of the bonds between the food molecules to release energy that act as a cellular excretion, as a cellular respiration, sorry. Respiration means burning food or oxidation of the bonds between the food molecules to release energy. يبقى بدينا شابتر 1 كان nutrition. عشان نعمل transportation للفود ده فلازم شابتر 2 يبقى transportation. شابتر 3 كان بيتكلم عن ال respiration او cellular respiration عشان نشوف ايه الانرجي تطلع ازاي من الفود. طيب بعد respiration لازم تفضل ويستس. عشان تفضل ويستس يبقى لازم يبقى شابتر 4 بيتكلم عن الاكسكريشن. excretion means getting rid the harmful catabolic wastes that may harm the body or leave the body through the cell membrane. يبقى لازم الويستس اللي ناتجه عن ال burning process او الاكسيديشن of the food molecules دي بتبقى كلها harmful wastes. فبنبدا الشابتر بconcept of excretion. يعني ايه excretion؟ excretion الحقيقة it is the getting rid of metabolic wastes، وطبعا يبقى more accurate لما نقولها catabolic wastes that causes harms to the body. The excretory wastes are those which pass through plasma membrane to leave the body. يبقى في شرط مهم قوي ان علشان يحصل excretion لازم the excretory wastes pass through a plasma membrane. That's to act as a excretion. يعني لازم تكون خرجت من السيل ممبرين او دخلت السيل ممبرين، فلازم تكون عدت ممبرين. علشان كده في give reason question كده يقول لك ان الاكسكريشن او the defecation is not act as a excretion. يعني ايه؟ يعني الفود اللي هيخرج as a non-digested food material which get out from the body which is not digested inside the digestive system does not act as excretion. وهنرجع لل give reason دون بعد ما نشوف ايه هي excretory wastes which may accumulate inside the body. اول حاجه في excretory wastes carbon dioxide, water that's produced as a result of catabolism of the carbohydrates. So the oxidation of carbohydrates release the wastes as carbon dioxide and water. The carbon dioxide and water get out from the body or leave the body through the lungs, skin, and kidneys. Number B, the nitrogenous wastes as ammonia in the aquatic animals as a fish, urea and uric acid that released as a result of the catabolism of protein that's getting out through the kidney and the skin. Number C, toxins. Toxins, it's the toxic substance or the poisonous substance which may get inside the body with the food. So the toxic substance are converted into non-toxic substance by the liver and the kidney. Also the volatiles, which is the substances that are released as the catabolism of the spices. The volatile substance divided into two parts. The first part is the salts, the second is the volatile substance. The salts get out through the kidney, but the volatiles get out through the lungs. So the excretory wastes that produced as a result of catabolism from the food molecules, carbon dioxide, water, nitrogenous wastes, toxic substance, and volatiles. What about the excretory organs that are responsible for releasing the wastes from the body? احنا عندنا system اسمه excretory system. excretory system بيتكون من organs. الorgans اللي عندنا organs كتير. نرجع للجيف ريزون اللي قلنا عليه من شوية. give reason defecation is not act as a excretion. ليه الديفيكيشن ده مش بنعتبره excretion؟ احنا قلنا في شرط ان الاكسكراتوري wastes get out or leave the body through a plasma membrane. طب نمشي ورا البولس دي، ورا الفود ده، هنلاقي ان البولس ده بتمشي جوه alimentary canal من الاسوفيجاس، تعدي الكارديك سفنكتر، توصل للستومك، يحصل digestion للبروتين into polypeptide due to the presence of pepsin، وبعدين تمشي في السمول intestine، يحصل complete digestion to all the food molecules. After that, the non-digested substance or the solid non-digested substance which is not digested inside the small intestine get out through the anus, which is the last part of the large intestine. لما يحصل كده احنا نعرف ان ده act as a defecation but not act as a excretion. طب ده ما ينفعش يبقى excretion ليه؟ اهو نرجع للانسر تاني. Because excretion occurs through the plasma membrane but defecation is not get rid of the wastes of the digestion through the alimentary canal. دي ماشيه في تيوب من اول البيوكال كافيتي لغايه الانس، خرجت ما عدتش ولا اي بلازما ممبرين، علشان كده defecation is not act as a excretion. Also, the nitrogen gas which get inside the lungs during the inhalation and get out through the exhalation does not act as excretion because the nitrogen is not passed through a plasma membrane. So the excretory wastes should be passed through a plasma membrane and leave the body that's act as a excretion. What about the excretory organs inside the body? The excretory organs inside the body, number one, the skin. The skin responsible for getting rid water, little amount of urea and the salts. Number two, the kidney. The kidney responsible for getting rid water, urea, great amount of urea, salts and the toxic substance. The lungs responsible for getting rid three substance: water, volatile of spices and carbon dioxide. The liver responsible for the getting rid the toxic substance that may take place by changing the toxic substance into non-toxic substance or divide the toxic substance into two monomers which are non-toxic, or the hepatic cells can store the toxic substance inside the hepatic cells and not allow the toxic substance to reach the whole body organs. So the excretory wastes inside the body is the skin, kidneys, lungs and the liver. That's the excretory organs inside the body. What about the structure of the human skin? The human skin consists of many layers. The upper layers are called the epidermis. The epidermis divided into two layers, the outer epidermis and the lower epidermis. The epidermis is formed of the outer layers that's formed of dead horny substance called keratin substance that act as a kind of structural protein. The inner layer which divide all the time to replace the detached or the shed of dead layers. At the base of this layer, the pigment cells that responsible for the secretion of melanin for the skin color. So the melanin is the substance that responsible for the skin color and it's secreted from the lower parts of the epidermis. What about the second part of the skin? It is the dermis. The dermis is formed of connective tissue containing the blood vessels, nerve ending, lymphatic sweat glands or lymphatic ends, the sweat glands, fat glands and hair follicle. The sweat gland is formed of coiled tube. It contains secretory cells to absorb sweat from the body, from the blood capillaries or from the blood inside the blood capillaries that surrounds the sweat gland through these cells. So the skin consists of two main layers. The upper is called epidermis, and the epidermis divided into two layers, the outer layer of epidermis and the inner epidermis. The outer epidermis that's made of horny layer called keratin, but the lower end that containing the living cells divided continuously to replace the detached outer epidermal cells. The epidermis cells act as the kind of tissue act as a epithelial tissue, but the dermis act as a connective tissue. That's the type or the difference between epidermis and dermis. That's the section of the human skin which containing the layers of the skin, the outer layer which is act as the outer epidermis, the inner which is the lower, that's the sweat gland which act as a coiled tube surrounded by huge number of blood capillaries that open at the upper epidermis with the hole that's called the sweat pore. So the sweat gland is formed of a coiled tube. It contains secretory cells to absorb sweat from the blood capillaries that surrounding the sweat gland through these cells. The function of the sweat gland is a regulation of the body temperature, the excretion of the wastes. That is the importance of sweating. That's the regulation or reducing the body temperature. Number 2, excretion of the excess water, salts, and urea. So the skin acts as an excretory organ due to the presence of the sweat gland, which is responsible for excretion of the water and the salts and a little amount of urea, and also reduce the body temperature. This question asks about the position and the function of each of the following. Write the position or the site and the function of each of the following. The sweat gland. This video explains the structure of the epidermis and also the sweat gland which is located inside the dermis layer which is made of connective tissue. The outer epidermis or the epidermis divided into upper dead layer that's called the horny layer and the lower epidermis responsible for the division continuously. Due to the exposure of the skin to the direct sunlight, little amount of the rays can pass through the skin, and the melanin layer protects the skin against the harmful effect of the ultraviolet rays which may harm the skin. The sweat gland surrounded by a huge number of blood capillaries to absorb the components of the sweat from the gland. So the sweat gland, site of the sweat gland, it is coiled tube in the dermis layer of the skin. The function of the sweat gland, it absorbs sweat components from the blood capillaries surrounding it. The absorption of the sweat components from the blood that act as a kind of excretion and also that regulate the body temperature or reduce the body temperature during increasing the temperature of the body. What about the hair? The hairs that get out from the skin, it is formed of the hair follicle which is surrounded by blood capillaries to feed the hair and containing a sebaceous gland at the upper part of the hair, the sebaceous gland or fatty gland responsible for the secretion of the oily substance to facilitate the exit of the hair and keep it soft. The follicle supplied with an erector muscle to move the hair. يبقى لما اجي ادرس الهير هنا هعرف ان ليها hair follicle وليه surrounded by huge number of blood capillaries to feed the hair. ليه عندها fatty gland or sebaceous gland دي مهمة to secrete the oily substance to facilitate the exit of the hair، لأن الشعرة مش بتكبر من فوق، لا بتكبر من تحت من هنا، فلازم تخرج، يبقى لازم يبقى في oily substance secreted by the sebaceous gland. And also the oily substance keep the hair soft and protect the hair against broken. The hair act as a structure that get out from the skin of the mammals. Also the dermis containing the sensory nerve ending to receive the external stimuli such as touch, pain, and heat. So the skin act as a sensory organ, act as a excretory organ, act as a part of the immunity that protects the body against the harmful substance which may get inside the body through the skin. So the skin act as a very important part of the excretory organs of the human beings. Give reason. The sweat is also produced in winter. احنا بنقول ان السويتنج ده بيحصل علشان يعمل regulation للبادي temperature during increasing the temperature. طب ليه بيحصل sweating during the winter؟ Because of the continuous blood supply to the sweat gland to regulate the body temperature in addition of the excretion of wastes. احنا ممكن نبقى في الشتاء وبنجري كتير، بناخد حاجه سبايسي مش عارف حاجات كده، فده بيزود لنا البادي تمبريتشر، فهنا تبدا السويت جلاندز تبدا تعمل ريديوسنج او ريجوليشن للبادي تمبريتشر. لما بنعمل اكسرسايز عالي برضو بيحصل burning of food or oxidation of food to release huge amount of energy. This energy may harm the body, so the temperature is reduced due to the presence of huge number of sweat glands in the human skin. So the biggest organ of excretion in the human blood is the skin. Give reason. There is a spacious or fatty gland beside each hair inside the skin. بيقول لي ليه في spacious gland أو fatty gland beside the hair skin in the skin. We remember that the follicle exit the follicle surrounded by a huge number of blood capillaries, and the spacious gland responsible for the secretion of oily substance to facilitate the exit of the hair from the skin and keep the hair soft and pliable. يبقى لازم يبقى فيه fatty gland أو spacious gland. حسب السكريشن بتاع الفاتي جلاند، لو ناس عندهم فاتي جلاندز كتيرة نقول ان الجلد دون او الشعر دون نقول عليه دهني مثلا، يعني due to the secretion of great amount of oily substance. لو هي متوسطة يبقى normal، لو هي قليلة نقول عليه dry hair او dry skin او بنقول عليه شعر جاف. ده according to the presence and the distribution of the fatty glands that surround the hair. What about the second organ inside the body that act as the excretory organ? The excretory organ inside the body is the two kidneys, but the kidneys are organs inside a certain system which is called the urinary system. The urinary system consists of two kidneys, right and left one, but the right one at the level lower than the left one. That due to the presence of the liver which causing a certain pressure on the right kidney. The kidney responsible for the excretion of the urine or the absorption of the urine components from the blood. The urine components pass through the ureter from each of the two kidneys. The ureter get inside the urinary bladder which store the urine. الفيديو ده هنشوف فيه ان احنا عندنا two kidneys. طبعا كل kidney supplied with the blood from the aorta artery in a certain artery which is called the renal artery, which carry the oxygenated blood to the kidneys, and the renal vein which carries the deoxygenated blood from the kidney to the inferior vena cava of the heart. يبقى انا عندي aorta جاي من الهارت هنا داخل كده للكدني، وهو بره كده ده اسمه aorta artery، اللي داخل الكدني ده بنقول عليه renal artery. طيب حصل ان التيشو بتاعت الكدني دي اخدت اكسجين، والبلاد اخدت منه اكسجين واخدت فود وادت للبلاد باقي البلاد بعد ما هتاخد منه اليورين كومبوننتس. فالبلاد اللي موجود في الكدني بعد ما اخدنا منه اكسجين وفود واخدنا منه كمان اليوريا علشان دي كدني، هيخرج البلاد هنا through the renal vein. Renal vein that carry blood to the inferior vena cava to the right atrium of the heart. جوه اهو البلاد كده بيدخل الكدني، وبعدين بتاخد منه الويستس، وبعدين في تو ليكويدز كده خارجين من الكدني، واحد خارج من هنا رايح للانفيريور فينا كافا through the renal vein، والتاني carry the urine to the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder store the urine until the getting rid of the urine outside the body. يبقى كان الurinary system two kidneys, two ureters and the urinary bladder. What about the functional unit of the human kidney and how it works? That acts as a longitudinal section in the human kidney. The outer layer is called the cortex, which is the narrow layer, but the inner layer, that's called the medulla. The medulla more thicker than the cortex. But at the center of the kidney, the presence of the pelvis of the kidney. So the kidney divided, or the tissue of the kidney divided into outer cortex, inner medulla, and the presence of the pelvis, which act as a cavity to carry the urine from the collecting ducts which connected with many nephrons. برضو هنا the aorta artery that carry the oxygenated blood through the renal artery which get inside the kidney, and the renal vein carry the blood, the deoxygenated blood with no urea and salts to the inferior vena cava. لما نيجي ندخل كده جوه الكدني كده علشان نشوف الفانكشنال يونت which is called the nephron. The lobule inside the medulla containing a huge number of the unit or the functional unit of the kidney which is called the nephron. The nephron consists of the cup-shaped structure which is called the nephron. Inside the nephron, the presence of huge number of blood capillaries which is called the glomerulus or glomeruli. The glomerulus is the blood capillaries inside the Bowman capsule. Due to the pressure of the blood inside the blood capillaries of the Bowman capsule, the filtration takes place of the blood inside the cup-shaped structure which is called the Bowman capsule. So filtration takes place of the blood. All the blood components get out from the blood capillaries except the protein molecules and the blood cells. Because the protein molecules and the blood cells act as a big molecules can't get out through the plasma membrane. So after the filtration, all the plasma components are filtered inside the Bowman capsule, and the protein and the cells return back to the blood. So the filtration takes place inside the Bowman capsule to filter the blood components. That's the blood which pass through the Bowman capsule. The wastes and all the monomers get out from the plasma to get inside the Bowman capsule. So the process which takes place inside the Bowman capsule is called the filtration process. طيب حصل filtration جوه البومان capsule, the filtered substance pass through the first and the second coiled tubule of the nephron. Inside the first and the second coiled of the nephron, the second process takes place which is called the filtration process inside the Bowman capsule, but the reabsorption takes place inside the first, the second, and coiled tubule and the lobe of Henle. So this first tubule which connected with the Bowman capsule, the second coiled tubule, the lobe of Henle, reabsorption takes place. So the useful substance returned back to the blood, but the urea and salts and the other waste is still inside the collecting duct. That's called the first coiled tubule, where the reabsorption takes place. The lobe of Henle, which acts as a U-shaped tube in the medulla of the kidney, that's responsible for increase the area of the reabsorption. That is the second coiled tubule which connects the nephron with the common collecting ducts. The common collecting ducts carry the urine from many nephrons to the pelvis of the kidney. So the renal blood flow inside the kidney, the blood get inside the kidney through the renal artery. Filtration takes place and reabsorption takes place inside the nephrons which act as a functional unit of the kidney. That's the filtration process which takes place inside the Bowman capsule. And the second process which is called the filtration, the reabsorption takes place inside the first and the second coiled tubule. The filtration process is very important process to filter the blood components to allow the substance or the monomers to get inside the Bowman capsule, the coiled and the second coiled tubule. After the reabsorption, the components of urine is still inside the coiled tubules to carry the urine to the collecting ducts. The collecting ducts carry the urine components to the pelvis of the kidney. The pelvis carry them to the ureter, and the ureter responsible for carrying the urine components to the urinary blood. So filtration and reabsorption are the two processes that takes place to release the urine components from the blood by the functional unit of the kidney, which is called the nephron. Each kidney consists of about 1 million of nephron. So the human body containing 2 millions of nephrons in the two kidneys. The reabsorption is very important process. If the reabsorption is not takes place, the human or the man need to drink about 170 liters of blood per day. After that, the urine components pass from the kidney through the ureter to the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder stores the urine components until expelled outside the body during the urination process. So that is the excretory function of the human kidney. Explain the role of the following structure in the urine excretion: Bowman capsule, nephron, tubules. قلنا كده ان ال two kidneys واضح ان ال right kidney at the level lower than the left one. هنا the nephron, which act as a functional unit of the human kidney because it's responsible for the excretion or the absorption of the urine components from the blood. That's the filtration process which takes place inside the Bowman capsule, where all the plasma components get out from the blood capillaries, but the blood cells and protein can't. The first coiled tubule reabsorption takes place through the first, the second, and the lobe of Henle. So the reabsorption takes place to allow the useful substance with the huge amount of water get out from the coiled tubule to return back to the blood as a glucose, amino acids, vitamins, water, ions, or important salts. After that, purification takes place of the blood due to the action of the nephron, and the urine components pass through the collecting duct to the pelvis of the kidney. The question: compare between kidney in lower vertebrates and kidney in the higher vertebrates. The kidneys in the lower vertebrates are long, thin organs extending on both sides of the vertebral column. But in the higher vertebrates, as the human beings, the kidneys are thicker and exist behind the peritoneum membrane, which line the abdominal cavity. All the organs of the digestive system are surrounded by a thick membrane which is called the peritoneum membrane, but the two kidneys outside the peritoneum membranes at the two sides of the vertebral column. But the lower vertebrates, as the fish or the amphibia, as the frog, the kidneys appear as a long, thin, brown organs that extended on the both sides of the vertebral column. This is the difference between the kidneys in lower vertebrates and the kidneys in higher vertebrates. The question mentions the site and the function of each of the following. The liver. The liver is very important organ inside the body. The man or the human can't survive without the functions of the liver. What about the functions of the liver? The liver acts as a big organ or the biggest gland at the upper right side of the abdominal cavity. The function of the liver: number one, store the excess amount of glucose in the form of glycogen. Number 2, it destroys the hemoglobin of the dead RBCs to form bile. The hemoglobin acts as a proteinic substance that formed inside the RBCs or the red blood corpuscles. So the liver uses the hemoglobin of the dead RBCs to form the bile. The bile changes fats into emulsified fats. The liver determines the excess amount or deamination, carry out the amination process of the excess amino acids in urea, or break down the excess amount of amino acids into urea and uric acid. Number 5, it breaks down the poisonous substance by changing the toxic substance into less toxic substance, or restore the toxic substance inside the hepatic cells. It secretes prothrombin for blood clotting, because we remember that the secretion, the prothrombin responsible for the which act as the inactive enzymes that change into thrombin due to the action of thromboplastin. And also the liver secretes heparin substance to prevent the conversion of prothrombin into thrombin to prevent the blood clotting inside the blood vessels. يعني الليفر بيعمل حاجتين، حاجة علشان تساعد على انه يحصل blood clotting when the blood exposed to air pressure or friction, and also secrete heparin to prevent the conversion of the prothrombin into thrombin to prevent the blood clotting. ممكن تفكر بقى ازاي في بروثرومبين وفي هيبارين في نفس الوقت، واحدة بتعمل blood clotting وواحدة لا. لما نقول the blood exposed to air pressure or friction, the thromboplastin is formed. The thromboplastin stops the action of heparin in the part of the wound. So, due to the stopping the action of heparin, the prothrombin change into thrombin. So the thrombin change the fibrinogen into fibrin that's collected at the wound to form the blood clotting. So that's act as some points of the liver functions. What about the artificial kidney? If one of the two kidneys of the human being is damaged, the other kidney can grow and carry out the function of both of the two kidneys. But what about if the two kidneys are damaged? If the two kidneys are damaged, the man will die due to the accumulation of the toxic urea inside the blood. But the man can survive if the man with the two kidneys or two damaged kidneys or the failure of the kidneys can use the artificial kidney machine to remove the wastes from the patient blood. The main idea of the artificial kidney is a tube or semi-selectively tube that inserted into the that's act as a semi-permeable tube. The blood of the patient passes at one of the two sides of the selectively tube. At the other side, the presence of the dilation or the dialysis solution, which doesn't contain any urea or salts. When the blood passes through the side of the selectively tube, the urea or the urea that formed inside the blood and also found inside the blood, and also the presence of salts, they pass through the selectively tube to the side of the dialysis solution. So the blood returns back to the patient blood without the presence of urea and salts. That's the main idea of the artificial kidney. The diagram which explains the action of the artificial kidney that act as a tube inserted inside the artery of the patient, in the arm of the patient. So the blood channeled through the semi-permeable tube inside the machine. The semi-permeable tube is immersed in a bath containing all the normal blood chemicals except urea and the other metabolic wastes. When the blood passes through the selectively tube, the urea and the salts get out from the blood, and the free of urea blood return back to the human vein. So the main idea is the diffusion of the urea and the salts from high concentrated medium, which is the tubes which containing the patient blood, to the dialysis solution where the absence of urea and the salts. By the diffusion of the urea and the salts from the coiled tube or the selectively coiled tube to the dialysis solution, the patient blood become free of urea and salts. So that's act as the main idea that can remove the wastes and the urea. This video can explain a very simple mechanism of the artificial kidney. This path containing the patient blood and the semi-permeable membrane. The semi-permeable membrane, which has high selectively function, that can allow the urea and the salts pass from the patient blood to the dialysis solution. The dialysis solution can pass from this container to pass inside this side of the selectively permeable membrane. The patient blood pass inside the one or the other side of the semi-permeable membrane, so the wastes can get out from the machine, and the purified blood return back to the human blood. البلد هيدخل هنا، هيحصل filtration، هيرجع البلد تاني للبيشنت. كل اليوريا والسولتس والويستس اللي موجودة في البلد هيحصل لها filtration، هتخرج تروح للدياليسيس سوليوشن. ده اللي بنقول عليه purified blood، لأنه دايما متجدد جاي purified. وبعدين البلد هنا ادي شايفين الويستس واليوريا والسولتس بتخرج من البلد بتروح للدياليسيس سوليوشن، وباقي البلد بيرجع للبيشنت من غير اليوريا والسولتس. دي فكرة بسيطة بتخلي الناس اللي عندهم failure of kidneys يقدروا يعيشوا يعملوا الدياليسيس ده حسب بقى الفيلر اوف ذا كيدني بالبرسنتج كام. يعني هو في ناس بتعمل دياليسيس كل اسبوع، في كل مرتين في الاسبوع، في 3 مرات في الاسبوع، حسب قد ايه من النفرونز بتشتغل في الكدني، وبعدين نقدر نساعدهم بالارتفيشال كدني او الدياليسيس ماشين. دي الفكره بتاعه الارتفيشال كدني. شوف السؤال اللي قدامنا كده، بقول لك from the figure mention the labeled numbers. Number A. Number B. Explain how can the components pass from 2 to 3. The nephron, which act as the functional unit of the human kidney، ده بنعتبره renal artery. البلد هيدخل هنا في البومان كابسول اللي هي number 3. Number 2 دي glomerulus inside the Bowman capsule، هيعدي للفيرست كولد تيوبيول نمبر 4، وبعدين اللوب اوف هينل نمبر 6، وبعدين السكند كولد تيوبيول نمبر 7، والكومن كولكتنج داكت نمبر 8. لازم نبقى عارفين الليبلز بتاعت الستراكشر اوف ذا نيفرون. الليبلز اهي، ده رينال ارتري علشان ده داخل جوه الكدني، دي جلوميرولاي يعني بلاد كابيلاريز انسايد ذا بومان كابسول، دي بومان كابسول which act as a cup-shaped structure that act as the beginning of the nephron. That's the first coiled tubule. The second coiled tubule, the loop of Henle, which act as the U-shaped tube inside the medulla of the kidney. That act as a collecting duct to collect the urine components to the pelvis of the kidney. So that's the labels of the structure of the human nephron. What about the two components that pass through 2 and 3 and don't pass? We remember that from 2, which is the blood capillaries, to 3, which is the Bowman capsule, filtration takes place. So huge amount of water, glucose, amino acids, salts, vitamins get out from the blood, or all the plasma components can pass through the blood except the protein molecules, and also except the red, white and blood platelets can't pass through the membrane of the blood capillaries. because protein molecules and the cells act as big molecules. Mention the reason of the substance which does not pass through the glomerulus. So the reason that the protein and the cells are big molecules. The liquid passing through 3 contains glucose, water, and urea. What will happen to these components as they pass through the rest of the nephron؟ ايه اللي يجرى للووتر والجلوكوز واليوريا لما يعدي في باقي النفرون هنا؟ هنا هيحصل reabsorption at the first, second cold tubule. So the water or great amount of water and all the glucose molecules get out through the reabsorption process, and the urea still inside the cold tubule to carry it on to the collecting duct. This part, or the second part of this episode, explains the excretion of the plant. The excretion of plant takes place through 2 main processes. The first is called transpiration, the second is called guttation. The transpiration process are divided into 3 types. The first is the stomatal transportation. Stomatal transportation means getting rid of the water vapor through the stomatopores, and that make about 90% of the stomatal transpiration. The water vapor get out through the cutin layer, that's called the cuticular transpiration, that form 5%. The lenticular transpiration, that's the water vapor which get out through the lenticels of the wooden stem. That's the transpiration process. So this diagram explains the types of the transpiration. The first is the stomatal transpiration, the second is the lenticular transpiration, the third is the cuticle. To explain the stomatal transpiration, we should understand that the presence of stomatopores with a great number at the lower surface of the leaf. The pores open, or the stomatopores open during the light and closed during darkness. During the opening of the stomatopores, the water vapor get out through the stomatopores in the form of water vapor, which is called the stomatal transpiration. What about the lenticular transpiration? That's the lenticels which are located inside the or on the wooden stem. Wooden stem which act as a brown stem. Through the lenticels, the little amount of water vapor, about 5%, get out, which is called the lenticular transpiration. But the cutin layer, which cover the upper and the lower epidermis except the stomatopores of the leaf, may little amount of water vapor get out through the cutin layer at the thin parts, or the thin layer of cutin layer in a certain part that form about 5% of the water vapor which get out from the plant, which is called the cuticular transpiration. So the plant can get rid of the excess amount of water in the form of water vapor through stomata, through the cutin layer, through the lenticels. Through the stomata, that's called the stomatal transpiration, form about 90%. Cuticular transpiration through the cutin layer form about 5%. Lenticular transpiration 5% through the lenticels on the wooden stem. But the excretion of the plant in the form of transpiration and also in the form of guttation. What about the guttation process, which takes place inside some of the plants at the early morning during spring? The guttation is the getting rid of the water-containing salts from the tips of the leaf through a certain system which is called the hydatoid. The hydatoid also called water stoma. So, this video explains the presence of drops of water containing salts on the tips of the leaves of some plants, as the tomato or the okra plant. So, the presence of drops of water at the tips of the leaves that takes place at the early morning during spring. This phenomena is called the guttation process. The guttation process takes place only at the early morning during spring only in some of the plants that act as a kind of excretion of water and also the salts. Due to the evaporation of water, we can observe the presence of salts accumulated on the water stoma or the hydrosuit. So what about the site and the function of the hydrosuit? Hydrosuit also is called the water stoma. The hydrosuit is one or many loose cells at the tips of some plant leaves, at the potato and the tomato. The function of the hydrosuit through which the guttation takes place or guttation occurs. Guttation is the getting rid of water and salts from the hydrosuit or the water stoma of the plant. So the hydrosuit act as a site where water and the salts get out from the plant as a kind of excretion. Write the function of each of the following. Stomatophores during transpiration. This question asks about the function of the stomatophores during transpiration. The stomatophores getting rid or responsible for getting rid of the water inside the water vapor. That takes place by the getting rid of water vapor from the stomatophores. The water appear inside the xylem vessels in the form of thread due to the cohesive force and the adhesive force between the water molecules and the xylem wall. This thread carry the water to the leaf where evaporation takes place through the air chambers inside the leaf. Transpiration means getting rid of the water molecules through the stomatophores. That's help in the ascent of sap from the root, because when the water get out through the stomatophores, that act as a pulling force to pull the thread of the water molecules upwards. That leads to the presence of lateral pull of the water through the tissue of the roots. When the water is absorbed from the root hair, that increases the osmotic pressure inside the root hair. That allows the root hair to absorb the water molecules from the soil to get inside the plant. And the water carried on in the form of water thread or thread of water that carry the water to the leaf for the photosynthesis process, the respiration process, and also for the transpiration process. The plant loses about 90% of the transpired water through the stomata, which help in the ascent of sap. This experiment to prove that the plant transpires. This experiment, or in the experiment, we can surround the bottle of the plant with the plastic bag or the paraffin paper, and cover the plant with the pill jar or with the plastic bag. What about the observation? The presence of drops of liquid are accumulated inside the pill jar, or drops of liquid accumulated inside the plastic bag. But the plastic bag, which is located at the same side where the absence of the plant, no water vapor, no water drops or liquid inside the plastic bag. So the water drops get out from the plant due to the transpiration process, which allow the water to get out from the plant. The liquid change the white copper sulfate or anhydrous copper sulfate into blue copper sulfate. So the copper sulfate or the blue copper sulfate is the copper sulfate containing water molecules, but the anhydrous white copper sulfate doesn't contain water. So adding water to copper sulfate or the white copper sulfate, that changes the copper sulfate into blue. So the copper sulfate acts as an indicator of the water. Also, this experiment explains the evaporation process or the presence of the transpiration process which takes place by the plant. if you cover the plant with the plastic bag and expose the plant to direct sunlight, we can observe the presence of drops of water accumulated on the inner wall of the plastic bag. This liquid or this water change the white copper sulfate into blue copper sulfate. So the conclusion of the experiment is that the plant can transpire. So the experiment that proves the transpiration in plant is very simple experiment, can carried out by very simple materials that located inside the school or inside the home. The question give reason for each of the following. The kidney receive one liquid that is which is the plasma, and the two kidneys leave it. The useful substance as a food stuff, water, vitamins are reabsorbed back to the blood. So the plasma is the only liquid get inside the kidney, but the two kidneys that leave the kidney is the reabsorbed substance which get out from the kidney through the renal vein, and the urine components which pass from the kidney to get inside the pelvis of the kidney to pass through the ureter to get inside the urinary bladder. يبقى البلازما بيدخل لكن بيخرج reabsorbed substance with the blood which become free of urea and salts to the renal vein, but the urine components pass from the kidney to the ureter to get inside the urinary bladder. So one kidney can get inside the kidney and the two liquids leave the kidney. That's the give reason which explain or ask about the reason of the liquid or one liquid is received by the kidney and the two liquids leave the kidney. Give reason. Man can't live when two kidneys stop in their functions. The man can survive if one of the two kidneys is damaged, because the second will grow to carry out both of the two kidneys. But if the two kidneys are damaged, failure of the kidney care takes place, accumulation of urea of the blood or accumulation of urea inside the patient's blood takes place that act as a poisonous substance or uremia. The uremia is the accumulation of urea inside the human blood due to the failure of the kidney. So by the explanation of the action of the two kidneys, the skin, the liver, the lungs, the excretion takes place to getting rid the wastes from the human blood. So the excretion is very important process or very important vital activity that takes place by the living organism to allow the living organism to survive. أبنائي وبناتي الأعزاء، دي كان آخر جزء في الحلقة بتاعت النهاردة. شكرا لكم وإلى اللقاء.